Hey, it's Anna. Welcome back to my channel. And today we're going to be ranking standalones based on how much I think I would like them. So I haven't read a single book in this stack of 20 books, and we're going to just rank 10 of them, I think. Maybe we'll do more. We'll see how fast this goes. And I'm really hoping these are all true standalones. So that's why I picked out so many books, because I might have one that's not a true standalone. These are two examples of what I mean by they're not like a true standalone in my mind. This is the first book in like Allie Hazelwood's, STEM spicy romance series. So we have The Love Hypothesis, Love on the Brain, and then Love Theoretically. So I wouldn't consider this a standalone, even though you only follow these main characters in this book. You still see them in the other books with little cameos. Another example would be The 7 Days in June and A Love Song for Ricky Wilde, because again, The 7 Days of June does make an appearance, those characters in A Love Song for Ricky Wilde. So like, even though they're technically standalones, I know that there's a certain order to read them in. And then with By the Book, this is the second book in the Meant to Be series. So even though the characters don't necessarily overlap as much, this is a technical part of the series. So I'm trying to make sure that I don't include any books like that. Now, did I vet all of the books in my giant stack of books? No, I didn't. So that's why I have so many, because when I check Goodreads, I'll make sure that I actually have true standalones. I have my spinning wheel up here ready to go. So let's choose the first book. Our first book is Last Night at the Telegraph Club. A nice thing is I just typed it into Google and it says it's a novel by Melinda Lowe, so really shaping up to be a standalone here. All right, I have Goodreads pulled up, so there's nothing up here indicating that it's any part of a series, which is great. The rating is a 4.23 on Goodreads with 86,000 reviews. It is a historical fiction, LGBT, romance, young adult, so that seems very up my alley. It is 409 pages, which is very nice. So let me physically get the book, because this time I didn't want to read the descriptions of the books on my computer. I wanted to physically look at the books. Here we have my copy of Last Night at the Telegraph Club. It's won the National Book Award. It looks like this is the Prince Award. I don't know anything about that. The Stonewall Book Award, and then the Youth Literature Award winner. So very acclaimed book to me, which I don't necessarily think is a bad thing for me. I feel like some stickers on some of these books I'm going to be like, I don't know if I would like it that much, but nothing's really holding back with this one. Let's get into the description. We have Lily Hugh can't remember exactly when the question took root, but the answer was clear the moment she and Kath Miller walked under the neon sign of a lesbian bar called the Telegraph Club. America in 1954 is not a safe place for two girls to fall in love. Red Scare paranoia threatens everyone, including Chinese Americans like Lily. With deportation looming over her father, Lily and Kath risk everything for love. Okay, I used to be a history teacher, so it already seems very interesting off the bat there. My only question is, do I think that this is going to be a number one pick? I feel like that's very risky to do the first time around, but I'm not sure. It's definitely not lower than a 3 for me. I feel like I would really enjoy this book. I feel like I could already see myself rating it like a 4 to a 4.5 star. Part of it's going to depend on the pacing. It's kind of a long book, but I'm sure you get a lot of the history in it. It's not just so romance focused, because I feel like romance books this long kind of like take me a while to get through, but I'm going to put this at the number 2 spot. If I regret that, I regret that. I feel like it could be a little bit slower, not as fast paced, depending on what the discussions are. And because there is romance in this, sometimes I just don't like third act breakups. And so I don't know. I'm leaning towards this being at a 2, which I feel like is a very strong start. All right, let's get our second book picked. Our second book for this first round is Stay With Me. So this is Stay With Me by Harayami Adebayo. I did just watch a YouTube video of her pronouncing her own name, so I really hope I did a good job. The cover looks quite a bit different than my cover, which makes me think, I don't know, that this is probably a newer edition. And if it got a cover redesign, I feel like a lot of people probably liked it. You'll see that there's nothing up here indicating that there's other books related to this. And the video I was watching was from from 2023 where she was announcing a new book, so that's nice to know that this again is a true standalone. It is rated at a 4.06 with 58,000 ratings. It is a fiction, African-based book, historical fiction, a contemporary book. So this could potentially mean that the book is a little bit more character-driven without too much of a plot, which isn't one of my favorite things. I'm definitely more of a plot-driven person. I do have some character-driven books that I really like, and they'll surprise me, which is why I don't stop reading them. So let's see what Stay With Me is about. Okay, so it takes place in Alyssa, Nigeria. Now the actual description. Ever since they first met and fell in love at university, Yejedi and Akin have agreed polygamy is not for them. But 4 years into their marriage, after consulting fertility doctors and healers and trying strange teas and unlikely cures, Yejedi is still not pregnant. She assumes she has time until her in-laws arrive on her doorstep with a young woman they introduce as Akin's second wife. Furious, shocked, and livid with jealousy, Yejedi knows the only way to save her marriage is to get pregnant, which finally she does, but at a cost far greater than she could have dared to imagine. The unforgettable story of marriage, as seen through the eyes of both husband and wife, Stay With Me asks how much we can sacrifice for the sake of family. I feel extremely bad about this. So I could see from the description, yes, while it is character driven, there is a clear plot line that we are following throughout, right? It is a shorter book, which means that we're not wasting, as much time getting through longer monologues, I'm guessing. So I feel like this would be a very good book. However, in the state of mind I am in right now, I'm currently reading Berry Pickers and Saturday Night at the Supper Club, and I'm listening to A Love Song for Ricky Wilde. And all of those talk about miscarriages and just a lot of heavier topics at the same time. And as of right now, I just don't think I would want to pick this up right now. I feel like I need a break from some of the heavier topics in my books because, I read for fun and some of the books are just a little too close to real life. So I'm going to put this at a solid 3. I don't know if it would be a 5-star book, which is what I'm trying to save the one spot for as well. I could definitely see this being a 4 to a 4.5, but with just the heavy topics involved, I don't think I would want to pick it up right now. I was telling my husband when I read a chapter of the Berry Pickers and then a chapter of the Saturday Night Supper Club book, I'm just everything falls apart every chapter and it's just so overwhelming. So I would definitely be interested in this, but maybe in a month or 2. So number 3 is a fair spot for this in my opinion. Let's see what our third book is. We have Rabbits as our third book. No. Oh no. Okay, I really thought this was a standalone book, but it's not. You can see it says Rabbits number 1 up here on Goodreads, meaning we have 2 books. I didn't realize I really thought this was a standalone. So Rabbits is the first book that has to go in our Anna didn't do her research pile. We'll see how many books end up in that pile. I really hope it's not that many. This is exactly why I have extra books. So let's see what our next book is. We have Reminders of Him. As you can see, Reminders of Him does not have any special stuff above the title, so it is a true standalone. It is a Colleen Hoover book. When I first joined book social media, those were the first books that I bought because those were the only books on my For You page at the time. And of course, everyone was raving about them, so I do own quite a few, but I've only read, I believe, 3 of them, and I didn't like any of them. So this will be really interesting. So with Reminders of Him, it is a 4.38 with 1.2 million reviews. So a lot of people like these books. Overall, I actually picked Reminders of Him specifically because one of my bowlers said that she was reading it, and I was like, oh, I don't really know if that is appropriate for a 14-year-old, but not my place to say anything. So let's grab Reminders of Him physically and see what it's about. We have a young mother fights to earn a place in her child's life, but is there room for her? Interesting. We have after serving 5 years in prison for a tragic mistake, Kenna Rowan returns to the town where it all went wrong, hoping to reunite with her 4-year-old daughter. So did she have the kid in prison? Okay, probably. That's how the years are working, I'm assuming. But the bridges Kenna burned are proving impossible to rebuild. Everyone in her daughter's life is determined to shut Kenna out, no matter how hard she works to prove herself. The only person who hasn't closed the door on her completely is Ledger Ward, a local bar owner and one of the few remaining links to Kenna's daughter. If anyone were to discover how Ledger is slowly becoming the most important person in Kenna's life, both would risk losing the trust of everyone, important to them. The two form a connection despite the pressure surrounding them, but as their romance grows, so does the risk. Kenna must find a way to absolve the mistakes of her past in order to build out a future of hope and healing. Okay, I don't really, sometimes when kids are involved, I feel like it's either a really big hit or a really big miss. To me, I feel like I haven't found a book with like children involved that I've just kind of felt meh about, and it just makes me kind of nervous. I don't get why everyone is like hating on this woman, and then coming back and having the romance aspect while she's trying to get back with her kid. I don't know. It just doesn't really seem to be my vibe of a book, so I am gonna put this at the number 5 spot, meaning that we have spots 1 and 4 left, which always puts me in a nervous situation, so we'll have to see what book we have next. So this is either number 1 or number 4 book. I don't know which one it's gonna be. I am definitely kind of nervous. The Girl with the Louding Voice. So as you can see, we have The Girl with the Louding Voice, nothing underneath it to indicate the series. This is by Abidari. I did also watch a video just to make sure I would pronounce it correctly. This is a 4.43 stars, so our highest star rating yet, with 150,000 reviews. It was also, I haven't really looked too much at the Goodreads Choice Awards, but this one stuck out because there's 2 awards associated with it. We have nominee for Best Fiction and nominee for Best Debut Novel. And I am definitely piqued by seeing 2 Goodreads Awards assigned to it. I know the Goodreads Awards are just a popularity contest, but still having 2 in the same year I feel like is extremely impressive. So this is my copy of The Girl with the Louding Voice, definitely different than the cover that was on Goodreads, so let's see what it's about. The remarkable, inspiring story of a teenage girl growing up in a rural Nigerian village who longs to get an education so that she can find her louding voice and speak up for herself. Again, as a former teacher, this is pulling on my heart. The Girl with the Louding Voice is a simultaneously heartbreaking and triumph novel about the power of fighting for your dreams. Okay, that's really sweet. Despite the seemingly insurmountable obstacles in her path, Aduni never loses sight of her goal of escaping the life of poverty she was born into to build the future she chooses for herself and help other girls like her do the same. Her spirited determination to find joy and hope in even the most difficult circumstances imaginable will break your heart and put it back together again. Jenna Bush Hager on the Today Show. And Aduni shows us how one courageous young girl can inspire us all to reach for our dreams and maybe even change the world. All right, I am definitely going to put this at the number 1 spot. I feel like this so far has been the book that I'm most drawn to see what is going to happen. I do think this is going to be more of a character-driven story, I will say, but again, doesn't look too long, so I don't think we're going to have like too many major, monologues or anything like that. And the idea of her getting her louding voice, she's going to run into troubles along the way. I can definitely see how one reason I might not give this potentially 5 stars is if there is some random romance aspect that just doesn't make sense with this plot at all. I feel like that has taken me out of quite a few books lately. I don't think we would get that in this book, so I'm going to put it at number 1, which means we're choosing our number 4 book next. I feel like every time I have a lower spot as the only one left, I get super nervous for what the book is going to be. At least this automatically won't go in the number 5 spot though, so let's see what book is going into the number 4 spot. Okay, Me and Earl and the Dying Girl. I haven't read this yet, but I feel like it was so popular. Oh man, okay, let's see what it's about. Maybe this won't actually be a standalone and I'll be safe from putting that at number 4. Okay, I don't feel too bad anymore. As you can see, there is no like series number on top, and this is actually our lowest rated book. I feel like some older books that I hold so high in my head once I actually read them, they're not very good. A great example of this is Sweethearts by Sarah Zarr or something like that, I believe. So that'll be really interesting to see what Me and Earl and the Dying Girl is actually about. I know there's an older cover than this. This is not the original cover, but I also feel like I like this cover more than the original cover, so I'm not mad to own it. All right, the description's kind of funky. So we have me. My name is Greg Gaines. I'm 17. I'm the one who wrote this book. My physical appearance is unsatisfactory, and there is probably a fungus eating my brain. I am not even sure I'm human. Earl. Earl Jackson is the only person who is even sort of my friend. We make mediocre films together. Werner Herzog is our biggest influence. Earl is generally filled with violent rage. Okay. Dying Girl. During my senior year, my mom forced me to become friends with a girl who had cancer. This brought about the destruction destruction of my entire life. Yeah, I guess reading that description and also having, you know, a black male main character as somebody filled with violent rage, like that just seems, you know, I don't really know how well Jessie Andrews as a white woman can write that. That kind of raises a little bit of a red flag to me. This is also 12 years old, which might mean that there is definitely some like outdated language in here that I might not like. So I don't know if this is a book that should live in the nostalgia bubble or not, but I'm definitely glad this is not in my number 1 spot. I feel like number 4 is actually okay. I feel like I could flip between 3 and 4 depending on the rating. I don't know if I would necessarily put it at 5 because I am piqued with the relationship building. There's a clear plot. I assume the girl is going to die by the end, which I always think is just interesting, knowing from the beginning that, hey, this person's not going to make it through the whole story, and then you have to be like, oh, well, then they actually die, and then you're sad about it. So I think it's definitely something that I do kind of like in books, which is, again, good that this is in the 4 spot. I feel like I won't dislike everything, but I'm just curious if this would be like popping the nostalgia bubble or not. So our first ranked set of 5 is The Girl with the Louding Voice at number 1. Last Night at the Telegraph Club is number 2. Stay With Me is number 3. Me and Earl and the Dying Girl is number 4. And Reminders of Him is number 5. Let's get 5 more ranked. Next choice. We have The Long Game. Okay, I definitely have to defend myself on this one. So it does say The Long Game number 1, okay? So this does look like it's a series, but in my defense, the second book hasn't even come out yet, okay? So until that second book was announced, it seemed like The Long Game would be a standalone. So this is also going to join Rabbits in the pile of Anna did not do her research. Rabbits, maybe I should have known about because it's been out longer, but The Long Game, I'm sticking by. That one's very recently not a standalone. All right, let's choose our actual first book of the second rankings. All right, we have My Killer Vacation. I specifically chose My Killer Vacation as a Tessa Bailey novel that I was pretty sure was not related to any other books in like the Tessa Bailey universe. So as you can see, nothing seems related, which is great. It is rated a 3.63 with 118,000 ratings. So we're already starting off a little bit on the lower end. I believe 4 out of our 5 books in the first stack were rated above 4 stars on Goodreads. It also looks like it's going to be our shortest book. It doesn't necessarily have any types of awards, so let's see what the book is about. All right, here it is. We have In Sweet Sunny Cape Cod, Just Me and My Beloved Brother, but oh, I definitely started on the wrong line. Let's go back. It was supposed to be a relaxing vacation in sweet sunny Cape Cod, just me and my beloved brother, but discovering a corpse in our rental house really throws a wrench into our tanning schedule. Now a rude, crude bounty hunter has arrived on the back of his motorcycle to catch the killer and refuses to believe I can be helpful despite countless hours of true crime podcast listening, not to mention a fulfilling teaching career of wrangling second graders, a brash bounty hunter, and an energetic elementary school teacher. The murder-solving team no one asked for, but thanks to these pesky attempts on my life, we're stuck together come hell or high tide. So that was the female's perspective. This is the male's. I'm just here to do a job, not babysit an amateur sleuth, although it is becoming less and less of a hardship to have her around. Sure, she's stubborn, distracting, and can't stay out of harm's way. She's also brave and beautiful and reminds me of the home I left behind 3 years ago. In other words, the insatiable hunger and protectiveness she is waking up in me is a threat to my peace of mind. Before I sink any deeper into this dangerous attraction, I need to solve this murder and get back on the road. But will fate take her from me before I realize the road has been leading to her all along? Okay, it's definitely a shorter book, which is nice because it's clear that it's kind of a quirky romance book, which I am personally a fan of those like quirkier situations. You know, I'm not reading for like the depth of reading, for the analysis of it. I do ask questions like as I read a book and comprehend them, and I'm not rushing through them, but I definitely don't need to like learn a lesson with every book. I feel like some books can just be a good time, and this book is giving me good time vibes. However, I am just not sure about like some of the language in terms of it being like cringy or too loose, especially from the female main character's perspective, but I haven't read a Tessa Bailey book, so I don't know if that's just like her. Also, it does say it's a spicy murder mystery, which sometimes I think the spice scenes can really take you out of a plot. So knowing all of this information, I'm actually going to put it at a 4. I did actually take the Goodreads ratings of most people into the account as well, because I feel like I could also potentially rate this a 3-star depending on the spicier scenes and how well the mystery is written. I feel like there's a lot of factors in this book that I'm just not sure of, and I haven't read a Tessa Bailey book yet, so I don't know if I even like her writing style, so we're gonna give this a 4 spot, and maybe we're just being a little overly cautious this draft round, but that's what I'm gonna stick with. Okay, let's pick our next book. Firefly Lane. I can already tell you as I'm starting to look up Firefly Lane on Goodreads that I'm sure it's going to have a lot of reviews, but it's a thick book. Oh my gosh, is it a long one? Oh no! Oh, we have another Anna didn't do her research. As you can see, it says Firefly Lane #1. So there are 2 books with this, which means that Firefly Lane is going into the Anna didn't do her research pile. If I do get 5 books in that pile, I think I might rank them at the end just for fun. I don't know. That might be interesting. Do I hope I have more on here that shows I didn't do my research? Absolutely not. I really hope we just get 4 that are true standalones from here on out, but it could be a little fun addition. We have one last stop. If this one isn't a standalone, I'm going to be extremely surprised. I really think this one is a true standalone. I think that's usually how Casey writes their book. Okay, look at that right there. No #1, so we're doing good there. This is a 3.93. It's an LGBTQ queer contemporary fiction related with some romance, of course. Casey is also the author of Red, White, and Royal Blue, which I have read, so that is pretty surprising for me. All right, let's see what it's about. For cynical 23-year-old August, moving to New York City is supposed to prove her right, that things like magic and cinematic love stories don't exist, and the only smart way to go through life is alone. She can't imagine how waiting tables at a 24-hour pancake diner and moving in with too many weird roommates could possibly change that. And there's certainly no chance of her subway commute being anything more than a daily trudge through boredom and electrical failures. But then there's this gorgeous girl on the train, Jane, dazzling, charming, mysterious, impossible Jane. Jane with her rough edges and swooping hair and soft smile, showing up in a leather jacket to save August's morning when she needs it most. August's subway crush becomes the best part of her day, but pretty soon she discovers there's one big problem. Jane doesn't just look like an old school punk rocker, she's literally displaced in time from the 1970s, and August is going to have to use everything she tried to leave in her own past to help Jane. Maybe it's time to start believing in some things after all. So I definitely like the concept, but knowing how I felt about Red, White, and Royal Blue, where I just didn't really like the main character and how they were written, I'm going to solidly put this at a 3, because there is potential with one of the main characters. I just don't like how they're written, but I could see myself still flying through it. Like I flew through Red, White, and Royal Blue. I really did enjoy the book, but I was very annoyed by the main character. I could potentially see the same thing happening here, so I feel like a 3 spot is extremely fair for this one. All right, we're working our way through them. 3 more books. We just need 3 of these to be true standalones to finish our ranking. I Know What You Did Last Summer. All right, we have I Know What You Did Last Summer. It is a true standalone by Lois Duncan. It is a 3.42 with 16,000 ratings. For whatever reason, I thought this was a way more known book. It looks like it's young adult. It goes in horror, mystery, and fiction, but it's less than 200 pages, which is interesting. And it was published in 1973. Ooh, okay. I feel like I don't mean to judge older books so harshly, but again, I feel like some live in this nostalgia bubble and then that bubble gets popped. So that's kind of what I'm a little worried about here. So let's see what this is about. Some secrets won't stay buried. They didn't mean it. They didn't mean to kill him. There was a party and it was an accident, but they had futures to protect. So Barry, Julie, Helen, and Ray swore one another to secrecy. But now, a year later, someone knows. Julie receives a disturbing anonymous threat. I know what you did last summer. The dark lie is unearthed, and before the 4 friends know it, they need to outsmart a killer or they will die next. Okay, I mean, first of all, the book being short is pretty nice. The plot is extremely clear. It looks like the cover was redesigned in 2020. The copyright actually says 1978, which is interesting. Oh, maybe because there's an excerpt from her other book in here, it's 1978, but it does look like it was originally published in hardcover in 1973. So I'm really curious because it also says Revived Trey's paperback edition for May 2020. So I guess I'm curious in terms of BookBub if there were edits made to this based off of feedback or anything like that, but it seems pretty short. I'm sure it would be pretty quick. The plot is very clear. I don't know what's gonna happen. Maybe people rated it lower because it was predictable. I'm not the best at predicting books, and when I can predict books, it's really not a good time. So I can't see this necessarily being a 5. I feel like I'm gonna put this at number 2. I don't think it could be 1, but that just means the next books are gonna either be the 5 or the 1 spot. So I'm putting myself in an interesting situation, but yeah, we're gonna put this solidly at number 2. I'm nervous. I don't know what I'm gonna do if both of these books are really good. I'm gonna feel kind of bad. Let's see what the next book is. An Enchantment of Ravens. So as you can see, it is a true standalone. It has a 3.65 rating. I think the cover is really pretty, but I don't know. I'm kind of nervous. Because this is either going to be my number 1 or my number 5. I feel like it's just really cool to have the cover all the way throughout with the ravens. Really appreciate that detail. Every enchantment has a price. With a flick of her paintbrush, Isabel creates stunning portraits for a dangerous set of clients, the fair folk. These immortal creatures cannot bake bread or put a pen to paper without crumbling to dust. They crave human craft with a terrible thirst, and they trade valuable enchantments for Isabel's paintings. But when she receives her first royal patron, Rook, the autumn prince, Isabel makes a deadly mistake. She paints mortal sorrow in his eyes, a weakness that could cost him the throne and even his life. Furious, Rook spirits Isabel away to his kingdom to stand trial for her crime. But something is seriously amiss in his world, and they are attacked from every side. With Isabel and Rook depending upon each other for survival, their alliance blossoms into trust, perhaps even love, a forbidden emotion that would violate the fair folk's ruthless laws, rendering both their lives forfeit. What force could Isabel's paintings conjure that is powerful enough to defy the ancient malice of fairy courts? Isabel and Rook journey through a knife's edge in a lush world where beauty marks corruption and the cost of survival might be more frightening than death itself. So it being a standalone and it being a fantasy makes me just slightly nervous because I feel like I haven't found like the perfect fantasy standalone, but I have read some good fantasy standalones where I'm left either like wanting more or I just really like the book. I know Sweet and Bitter Magic is an example. The Hanging City is an example. And I am really interested in this idea of the paintings. Is it a little bit dramatic? You know what? Yeah, it is. Obviously, it's dramatic of her to be put on trial because she like paints some weakness in this guy's eyes. I recognize that that's a little silly, but I also really don't care because I feel like that'll just fuel her dislike for the main character and then make their love story potentially more interesting. Since love is already written into the plot, that is also very nice to know ahead of time because clearly romance and survival are at the center of this plot, so you really know what you're getting into from this. I feel like I can't put this at 5, like by choice. I feel like I just can't do it. So I am going to put it at number 1. Even though the Goodreads rating wasn't as high, I feel like I could see myself really liking it. And again, maybe people don't like how it ended because they want more. I rated The Hanging City a 4.5 out of 5 stars because I wanted more from the book. So maybe other people did that too. So this is our number 5 book, not necessarily by choice. Let's see what it is. Oh my gosh, I feel like a jerk. I already know Crying in H Mart is a memoir. I don't want to put a memoir at number 5. Oh no. This is our highest rated book of this stack as well. We have Crying in H Mart, a 4.27, and it didn't win a Goodreads award. Great. Good job for me. Wow, I really wish that one had a sequel. Would have saved me a lot of trouble. All right, let's read the description. When Michelle Zauner, the indie rock musician known as Japanese Breakfast, was in her mid-20s, working as a waitress and struggling to launch her music career in Philadelphia, she got a call that her mother was ill. She put her life on hold and flew back home to Eugene, Oregon to be with her mother through the final excruciating months of her battle with cancer. This is Zauner's searingly candid coming-of-age story of growing apart and then back together with her Korean identity, and of forging her own path in the wake of a devastating loss. With humor and heart, she tells of growing up Asian American, straining to meet her mother's expectations, moving across the country and returning home to reckon with grief. And through it all, she savors the unexpected solace of weekly trips to her favorite Asian grocery store. Vivacious and plain-spoken, lyrical and honest, Crying in H Mart is an unflinching, powerful story of family, food, grief, and love. I don't want to put this at number 5. Geez. Where would I realistically put it? I think it's a good question to ask myself. I am not the biggest nonfiction person in the world. This does sound interesting. I do think I would cry because I really love my mom, and I'm not ashamed to say that, obviously. I couldn't get us Taylor Swift tickets, and I literally cried for 2 days because I felt like I was disappointing her, even though she flat out told me I wasn't. But I just like love my mom. I travel with her to states for her senior Olympic games. I absolutely adore her. So any like mother-daughter relationships in a book, like they just automatically get me crying. So I feel like I would connect with this book. I feel like I could put this at like realistically a 2 spot if that was available. I could see that, maybe 3, just because again, the nonfiction, it's not my favorite genre. I am sad to put this at 5, and I greatly apologize. Definitely did not know this was gonna be what was picked, but that's how these ranking books work. So number 5. So our second stack of books is number 1, An Enchantment of Ravens. Number 2, I Know What You Did Last Summer. Number 3, One Last Stop. Number 4, My Killer Vacation. And number 5, Crying in H Mart. I'm so sorry. Now this is interesting because I usually compare the books to each other from the 2 different stacks, which I'm going to do, but I really feel like the stack from like the first draft really felt like first draft picks. And then the books in the second stack, really outside of like Crying in H Mart and Enchantment of Ravens, I don't know. This will be interesting to see how these books all compare. So between The Girl with the Louding Voice and An Enchantment of Ravens, I'm going to give it to The Girl with the Louding Voice. Between Last Night at the Telegraph Club and An Enchantment of Ravens, I am going to give it to An Enchantment of Ravens. I think the fantasy aspect will be really nice. This is where I think it's going to be clear which stack I like more. So between Last Night at the Telegraph Club and I Know What You Did Last Summer, I'm going to give it to Last Night at the Telegraph Club. Between Stay With Me and I Know What You Did Last Summer, I'm going to give it to Stay With Me. Between I Know What You Did Last Summer and Me and Earl and the Dying Girl, I'm going to give it to I Know What You Did Last Summer. Between Me, Earl and the Dying Girl and One Last Stop, I'm going to give it to One Last Stop. Between My Killer Vacation and Me, Earl and the Dying Girl, I'm going to give it to My Killer Vacation. I feel like we already know I'm going to have to give this to Crying in H Mart. And then surprisingly, the stack wasn't then mixed up. We're going to have Me, Earl and Earl and the Dying Girl and Reminders of Him following the same order as when I initially ranked them. So this is my final stack of ranked standalone books. I feel like this is a pretty solid stack of books. Again, the only real big change I would make would be this Crying in H Mart. Otherwise, I feel like this is probably where I would rank these books. It'll be interesting to see as I read these where they actually end up ranking and if I ever come back to this video. These were the books that I didn't touch at all that again I think are standalones. It would have been interesting to see especially A Study in Drowning because I feel like I've heard a lot about that one, and One of Us is Dead as well because I have read a lot of Geneva Rose lately, and I am interested in terms of what I would have thought of these if they had been chosen. Or again, maybe I'm just silly and half of these aren't truly standalones and then they would have been added to my Anna didn't do her research stack. I'm curious if I do actually research my bookshelf if I have more books that kind of follow these, because then maybe I could make a separate video about, you know, books that I thought were standalones but end up being part of like some type of series and ranking those. But I don't know how many of those I actually have. So let me know if you would have ranked the books the same way, if you were surprised about any of the books that weren't actually true standalones. If you have standalones you absolutely love or hate, I would love to see that. I am still looking forward to what I'm going to be creating in the month of May. We'll be doing another like sit down video this month, getting into the readathon. I am so excited to do the readathon this month, especially because I am running low on book buying credits, and getting into June is going to be really fun because I do actually have a bookish trip planned in June. So we are going to have a really fun bookish summer. So definitely stick around. And if you have any video suggestions, definitely let me know. If there's any books you want to see specifically talked about or another fun ranking game or anything like that, I would be very happy for any help. I feel like I did just recently have like a creative uplifting moment, but I'm always scared. I'm never going to have an idea, and I would absolutely love to hear from you guys. So I will catch you in the next one.